What's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. You got Aiden, Lee, and Clayton here, and our guest tonight is Mindy.
Hi.
Awesome. Mindy, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. How does it feel to be on Let's Talk About It for our final episode of 2019-2020 school year?
It feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. Excited?
Yeah, I am.
Very cool. Well, guys, tonight our topic is, and it's something actually we haven't talked about in a while. So pretty much once this pandemic hit, we talked about it for a few episodes, and then we said, you know what, guys, probably what we need most is to not talk about COVID-19. But tonight, to end it and to launch ourselves out of the school year and into the summer, the topic is a COVID-19 summer. All right. So we are talking about COVID-19 once again, especially as we enter into the summer and all of the thoughts that come to mind about COVID-19 in the summertime. All right, Seth, welcome. Thanks for joining us, Taryn. We have so many people that are joining us tonight. This is awesome. Thank you, guys. We want to hear your thoughts on a COVID-19 summer. Travis Audie, thank you for joining us. But let's kind of get going with this. So what comes to mind when you think about summer and you think about the reality that we're in the middle of a pandemic?
Mindy, what do you think?
I'm not going to lie. It sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Why does it suck, Mindy?
Well, mostly because you can't do like a bunch of stuff that you would normally do during the summer. Like you can't go out, in big groups of people, see all of your friends in a big group, one last time, hang out on the beach, things are kind of different in that sense. So
Yep. So we want to kind of talk about that, the challenge that this summer is going to bring. I think even the challenge that's already brought, because some of you guys have been out of school now for a little bit. And so I want us to kind of think about that. Like, how's it going to be a challenge? But then also, I don't want to leave us on a negative, but I want to actually give us some ideas and give us some wisdom as we enter into the summer. Clayton, what are you thinking when you think about a COVID-19 summer?
So I'm thinking like we have Texas heat, and so it's crazy hot during the summer. So one way, like, I'd kind of like, I know a lot of people do this too, but like to get out of the heat, we go to the movie theaters. You'd see a movie.
Oh,
movie theaters are closed right now. I can't remember the last time I seen a movie in a movie theater. It's just like, when are they going to open back up?
Yeah, and some of those big ones have been pushed to later dates.
Yeah.
I have seen crazy. Have y'all seen crazy stuff coming out? By the way, welcome, Josh. Welcome, Maddie. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our final Let's Talk About It as we talk about a COVID-19 summer. But have you seen some of these things coming out with movie theaters? Like some of the neat creative ways that they're doing some stuff?
Yeah.
Like I've seen movie theaters that will allow you to rent like a movie theater for your group or whatever.
That's
like,
crazy.
And there's social distancing or whatever, but it's kind of a neat idea. Have you ever thought of renting a movie theater? Not I. But then there's also like drive-up movies. There's a lot of that coming back, which is kind of crazy. Drive up, drive in. Yeah.
They're just opening that new one over there in right next to Splashtown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're opening up a brand new one.
Okay, awesome. So those watching that aren't from our area, there's just a really close by. It used to be Splash. There's a water park. It's like a mini Six Flags water park or something, and so it's kind of close by near the interstate here in Houston.
It's actually owned by Six Flags now too, I think.
Yes, the water park or the drive-in.
The water park.
Okay. But there's a new drive-in opening up. That's interesting.
I think the property used to be owned by like Splashtown though.
Oh yeah.
It used to be like that little side area.
Exactly. So you're thinking movie theaters. Aiden, thoughts? COVID-19 summer. What comes to mind?
I mean, I kind of agree with Mindy. It's going to be weird not to be able to be in like big groups and stuff like that. But even more so, I think that like with how busy everybody still is and like how much everybody's still doing stuff, I don't think it's going to change as much as we think it is.
Good. I was hoping we would talk about this.
Yeah, I honestly think that, people are going to start going back to their normal ways of doing what they do. Obviously they're going to be a little bit more cautious of, washing their hands, staying somewhat, away from people. But at the same time, they're still going to do what they want to do this summer, and they're still going to have their trips, do their stuff, and just, yeah.
Good. Awesome. And I want you guys at home to be helping us out with this, because we do have this reality of we're still being encouraged, highly encouraged. And the word is encouraged because we still live in America, right? So you're not being forced to do anything because of the Constitution, but you're being highly encouraged, highly advised to be safe and to keep your distances. And so some things are going to be not so normal. Movies, I'm with you, man. Movies are a tough one not to see. All the summer blockbusters that would always come out. I mean, that phrase is a phrase for a reason. Granted, they're jumping onto streaming. Like, there's a lot of stuff opening up streaming-wise. But I want us to talk about this, too. And you guys help us with this. So are people going to, like Mindy, follow advice and guidelines, like which I think is a wise choice, and I think that is certainly the direction I would hope people would go? Or do you think that people are going to do what Aiden is kind of saying, which is they're already returning to normal habits, normal lifestyles. They're going to do the same exact stuff they've always done. And if so, what's going to happen? All right. So you guys are going to have to help us at home tonight and kind of help and continue this conversation. But you got Aiden's perspective over here. How do you guys feel about what Aiden said? Will, thanks for joining us. Will Campos.
Definitely feel like it's already like definitely getting back to like a norm, but I don't feel like it's going to ever be like right to that point right away. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be this summer. The summer's definitely not going to be the same, I feel like, than the last summer. Mm-hmm. I think there's no question about that.
In what ways?
I think in ways of like definitely socializing wise. So like we have the social distancing thing. So socially definitely is going to be different. I feel like, yeah, it's all recommended and stuff like that. But like how we like do our summers is kind of going to change because I feel like it's not going to be like late night Whataburger runs. You go hang out with your friends at Whataburger.
Yeah, because Whataburger's dining is closed right now. Yeah,
those fast food restaurants, dining areas are closed right now. So it's like, okay. The first time I ever been to, like, I went back to a restaurant since spring break was yesterday night. And I was like, it was just weird to have all the tables were like 6 foot apart. It was kind of weird to me.
And I still have not been to a restaurant like sit down or try to go in a dining area. I'm still very much a drive-through person, and I've only been to Chick-fil-A and Whataburger. Yeah, so I went to Whataburger yesterday. That was the first in a while, and it was actually interesting because it didn't feel fresh. Like it felt like it'd been sitting there for a while waiting for someone to order it. So it was a little different of a feeling. So it was just interesting because they're not making like they used to because they don't have the dine-in services. So it's been a little strange.
Have you seen what's in their store?
In their store?
Yeah, they have like they're stocking or whatever. They're stocking way more like food in the actual store itself.
Oh wow! So in the dining room,
yeah, in the dining area, I saw like a bunch of like racks full of like food and stuff like that.
Wow, that's interesting. No, that is fascinating. So I know Campos, you said this is it's last one of 2019, 2020. There's big plans, man. Big plans in the future. Don't worry. Let's talk about it. Will continue, and it's going to meet its new iterations in future years to come. So don't worry about that. So what are you thinking, Mindy?
Cooking with Lee.
Oh, yeah. they have big plans. I'm saying let's talk about it. That this idea of students coming together to talk about things that are important, that are relevant, that are fun, that are whatever, is going to continue in the fall too, just with different faces. But there might also be other iterations of different things that they're going to try through student ministry accounts or otherwise, like Cooking with Lee. Yeah. So who knows, right? And the YouTube channel, we're going to keep going. Like that's the thing is, the ministry keeps going. It's just we're getting to close a chapter, which is kind of a beautiful thing. So Minnie, what are you thinking about all this though? Are people just going to return back to normal or not?
I feel like a lot of people definitely will, just because of the way their personalities work. Extroverts, want to be around people. They don't feel themselves when they're not around people. It just all depends on how your brain works. So
yeah. Now, have you started seeing people going back?
I definitely have, and I've kind of done it myself, I mean, I definitely take precautions. I won't go anywhere without precautions, like hand sanitizer, mask, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so you think about past summers. Like, I mean, again, I think Clayton mentioned movie theaters is going to be the biggest difference. What Aiden and Mindy, what do you guys feel are going to be the biggest difference from summer experiences of the past?
I don't know. I think I just feel so much more precautious, like almost nervous being around other people,
Yeah, no, definitely. So just the general nature. And so it's interesting when the Rona broke out for the first time and like they first put out the stipulations of groups of 50 or less guidelines. I remember that was my first, we're not supposed to be touching. We're not supposed to be around. This was in the first couple weeks, after spring break. Or it's actually the Sunday after spring break. So all that whole week when the country is starting to shut down. And I remember going to some sort of a gathering and people coming up and just a few were like reaching out their hand to shake my hand or were hugging me, like walking up behind me and hug me. And I remember in that moment thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? So it's that kind of caution. And I think you're right. That's going to be a piece in it. How about you, Aiden?
Well, Corey said beaches and like the mall or shopping is going to change.
So this is a good question. So I sent these two an article, and I don't have it in front of me because it's on my phone, which is filming right now. But I sent these to an article about that someone had posted about activities that, when you look at activities of the summer, what's possible in a COVID-19 summer, pretty much in a pandemic. And beaches was actually up to a low risk situation, because you think about, I mean, being socially distant on a beach is not impossible to think about. You know what I mean? So that's a very real possibility. Now, certain things you do on the beach with other people, so I don't like pools, swimming, things like that. I don't know if you had pools on there. Don't recommend them just because of the proximity that happens in pools, or the proximity that happens on like when you're playing certain games and things like that. Or like, I know it's funny, I keep seeing youth directors will throw stuff around the internet and they're all recommending like bags, but bring your own bags. And I was like, no, like you're still touching the bags like all the time. Like you don't want to do that. But anyways, that's an interesting one. So mall and shopping are another interesting one that I don't know, because like I don't go to the mall.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you think of how many people are in the mall on like a normal basis.
Sure,
like, especially like the Woodlands Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Like that thing is packed. Like whenever we went up to Minnesota and we went to the Mall of America.
Oh yeah.
You think
and
of
people
how
are everywhere.
people are not going to be there anymore. So
crazy. And it is really crazy to start thinking about businesses that are closing down because of not being able to get through. And so that's the thing, is you might even go out to go to some place and it might not be there anymore too, which is a really weird kind of place to be. All right. So you got, again, I encourage you guys, y'all got to be helping us out on this. What do you think a COVID-19 summer looks like? Does it look like people doing mostly the same stuff? Or if not, what is so different? And what are you hearing that's kind of resonating with you? Because that's going to help us in moving this conversation. And so we talked about that kind of American piece. Now, one of the other sides I'd asked earlier, so if people just return to normal and do their own thing, this was the second piece. What do you think is going to happen?
I don't know, because I mean, I feel like there definitely could be like a second strand of the outbreak if people start getting back to just being normal, because, you know, you never know really who has it until you get tested, you know, so, and somebody could be a carrier or whatever. And so, or they could be asymptomatic. So, you know, you never know who actually has it or whatever. So it's kind of dangerous to start to say that we can just jump right back into like normal life without slowly kind of getting back into it.
So what do you guys think? Are y'all on the same page as Aiden, or?
Yeah, I agree with Aiden, and the vaccine's not even out yet. So, you know, how can we get back to our normal lives without it, you know?
Well, and that's the thing. So if you've read up on the different things about vaccines, like the fastest they feel like an actual vaccine could be on the market is 12 to 18 months. So it's not something that's going to happen soon. So thinking about that reality though, and again, I don't want this to be all doom and gloom and things like that. Okay. Let's think moving forward. What do you do about that reality? What do you do about the reality that COVID-19 is kind of here? You know, again, it is kind of sobering to pass the 100,000 mark for sure in the country, because that means it is a lot bigger than recent stuff like H1N1 and things like that. So what advice do we have for people when it comes to approaching summer? What are you thinking?
I mean, I think that you can still have fun and you can still have a summer that you can enjoy, still have your trips and stuff like that. You just have to be cautious of what you're doing. Okay,
so paint us that picture. What does it mean to be cautious and still have fun and still be doing what you're doing?
Well, you have to be cautious of who you're allowing into and around you. And you obviously have to keep yourself, you know, sanitary. And that way, you know, you know what you're doing for yourself. You're keeping yourself clean, but also you're kind of controlling who you let in your life and who you don't.
Yeah, and I think that's a big piece of it. So like, because that's the thing that kind of blows my mind, because obviously, like, let's go ahead and talk about it. Well, and yeah, I completely agree with you, Linda. College in the fall is going to be really fascinating about what they do, how they make choices and things like that. Schools opening up in the fall, going to be really, really fascinating when that stuff starts rolling out. I'm really interested, just because the difficulty we've had in trying to navigate what it means to come back as a large congregation, or to be in groups together, or to navigate what a summer camp looks like during COVID-19 and things like that, because that blows my mind too. because I was a camp director for 4 years, worked in camp for 10 summers. So I'm like, how do you even approach camp in a pandemic? Like, how do you do your best and put your best foot forward? But this kind of caution thing. And so when it came to worship, like that's a big thing that we're kind of pushing. And we have a thing here at Trinity after services called Digital Donuts. And I was on last week and we kind of got to talk about it. And my biggest advice, you guys know this because you have to fill it out in order to come on to campus right now. But we have this survey of like all the different things you need to ask yourself. And the biggest ones are just the symptoms. So any of the symptoms, even something as little as a headache, just stay away. But like the bigger ones are certainly the 100-degree temperature, meaning that you would have a fever, and also the do you know someone who has gotten COVID-19 and you've been encountering them in the last 2 weeks?
Wait, that's a question?
Yes.
I'm glad you read this survey.
Well, good job.
So one of the final questions is, do you know someone and have you encountered them in the last 2 weeks? Yep. So, but that's the thing. You guys want to make sure that you're aware of who you're around. That's this feeding what Aiden is saying, is that you kind of have to be aware of who you're around. So again, if you travel out of state, or you travel someplace, I hope that you are super cautious about who you're actually, I wouldn't even say 6 feet, who you're within 10 feet of. You know what I mean? Like that kind of caution, if you do not know them and you don't know where they've been, because that's where the virus spread, was not communities being communities. It was in people from other communities going to other communities.
So how do you feel about cruises during the summer?
No.
Not a fan? Yeah, not a big fan at all. Like,
But they're cheap.
Funny.
but it's kind of hard, right? Because you're indoors. I mean, that's anything outdoors, you're pretty much safe. Like we've looked at student ministry, what are possibilities for us? And you better believe outdoors,
cookout.
you got a number of stuff, a cookout, hanging out on the field, things like that. The tough part, here's the number one thing I'm going to grieve this summer. Basketball, dodgeball,
What about sardines?
sardines, like all these things I'm going to be
We could
grieving
play sardines outside.
because you could play sardines outside. That'd be a great idea. Or capture the flag would be interesting. Like a good one, not a lame one, but like laser tag, something
With
like
like
that.
paintballs.
A late one.
So like, but that kind of stuff would be fascinating. That's the stuff I'm going to be mourning. It's going to be hard for me. And that was my exercise a lot of times too. And no, seriously, I'm going to grieve it a little bit, like not being able to do those things.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I feel like that's the same way for most things in summer. So, okay. So Will said Texas A&M wants Saturday classes to keep the classroom not too crowded. Though, have you heard all the year-round school suggestions? Aren't you like so thankful you just graduated?
Yes. Yes. I would drop out.
Well, and the idea though, I mean, again, everybody's getting creative right now because what if we have another outbreak? Well, what do we do? And so they've actually put in these things and then had 2-week breaks already in place because that's the idea. If someone gets Rona, would take a break for 2 weeks.
So if you get it, can you get it again?
No, not yet. That's what
They
they're
don't
saying.
know that yet.
They
Okay,
haven't
I haven't
seen
heard anything about
They
that,
haven't
so I
seen
was-
it mutate, but once you get it, you're good. You have the antibodies. You're not going to get it. You're not going to spread it
So if you
after
have the
2
antibodies.
weeks. Yeah.
And so in the test, does that test the antibodies too, I guess?
So the test just tests whether or not you're positive, and then there's a separate test for antibodies right now.
okay.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, because we all think we've already had it, right? So back in November, December,
Yeah.
January, half of our schools were out. It was the flu, but it wasn't the flu. It was much longer than the flu. It was kind of crazy. So a lot of people think our area's already had it, and the antibody test would be really fascinating for schools, especially that are affected by that.
I had like a viral bronchitis thing during that time, and I gave it to my grandpa too. So I'm wondering, like, what was it?
Wait, so you had it and gave it to your grandpa?
Yeah.
And how long did you guys have this?
Oh, it took me like months to get over it. Like it does. I wasn't sick. I never had a fever. I never had a
Interesting.
fever.
Okay.
But
pass the test.
no, I never had a fever. But I don't know. My respiratory area was just like, I could not get rid of a cough. It was awful, So,
Yeah. And how about your grandpa? How long did he wrestle with it?
quite a while, I believe. I don't really pay attention. No
Yeah,
offense,
yeah,
Grandpa,
yeah. But no, like this is one of those things that it's kind of crazy to be thinking about. So like, but at the same time, even though we could have had it, we still want to be cautious because
Yeah.
you don't want to, if you're a non-symptomatic carrier, you don't want to pass it on to someone that would be very harmful for. Because again, we've talked about this a little bit, maybe not on air, but like, what's the goal right now? What's the mission when it comes to COVID-19? What's the society's goal?
Stop spread.
Okay.
Let's let everybody get it, so then we can all have antibody in our bodies.
Well, but why would we stop the spread? So
Natural
like that's
selection.
what's the purpose? Why do we not want the virus to spread right now?
Because we have no idea really what it does.
Yeah, that is true. We don't know long term.
What happens if it spreads exponentially right now?
Everybody gets
Major
it.
deaths.
Everybody gets, but why do people die? That's really the question.
They
Because
usually
they're
have
already sick.
underlying issues.
Okay, because there could be the underlining issue things. We're not there. Because do you remember the very beginning of this outbreak? What the phrase was, the hashtag, the big push,
Me too.
flatten,
Flatten the curve.
flatten the curve.
What? Okay.
So that was it. It was flatten the curve. The goal was not.
I've never heard that.
Are you kidding me,
Dude, it was
Have you never watched the
literally.
news?
bro? Have
No,
you
I don't watch
never
the
been on
news.
Twitter? Have you never been
I
on
don't use
Facebook?
Twitter.
Fake news.
I don't
bro.
use Facebook.
Where do you get any information?
I don't.
We have a new thing to talk
He
about.
has a
guys.
rock in his backyard.
Yeah.
Wow,
talk
Russell,
to my
thanks for
rock.
joining us. Appreciate seeing you, man.
Russell.
My rock works for the government.
Okay, so we now know Aiden. Well, because
Bossy.
it's this reading thing though too that we got to talk. So like, but Aiden does not know.
Gets to
Did you
college
know what
without reading.
COVID-19 was?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Where did you learn about coronavirus?
TikTok. Jesus.
Was it TikTok?
No, it was definitely on the news.
So you do watch the news.
I watched the news when I would go over to my grandparents' house.
The news is also known as the rock in his backyard.
All right. So Aiden has never heard the phrase "flatten the curve" until tonight. Okay, so that's fascinating to me. But the goal is to never. Why do you want to flatten the curve? You don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. That was the whole goal. So why do you not want an outbreak or a spike? Because there might not be enough beds, or might not be enough ventilators. So it's not that we're scared of people getting it. We're scared of them dying. And why would they die? Because they don't have a bed. Or if all the beds are filled up with coronavirus, then if you go in for a heart attack, there's no bed for you. That kind of thing. So that's kind of the fear of all this stuff too. All right. So Austin says that I dominate him in basketball too much, and that's why he's not looking forward to it. That was one of his quotes. The other one is, if COVID-19 is going to be around for a long time, we should treat it like the chicken pox. Kids and teens aren't as affected as adults, and you can't get again. So I think that's, again, we don't really know a lot about the virus. I certainly don't. I'm a pastor. I am not a doctor. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm
Don't
not
you
any
have
of
your
that.
doctorates though?
So what?
What?
No. So
Not yet.
but like, I think the widely accepted information about the virus right now by doctors is similar to that. Yes, Austin, and that like it's not that kids can't get it, but it's not so serious right now for kids. Even though there is stuff out there that's kind of scary for this new thing like PMIS, which is pediatric something inflammation something, which is it makes a part of your body inflame, and it's not the same part of your body at any point. So that's some of the stuff that's come out of the UK, some of the stuff that's come out in New York, which is kind of the hotbed for all this stuff, you know. But so all that to say is, at the moment, yes, that's what we believe. But there's the widely accepted that if you get it, you're not going to get it again type thing. So when you think about your summer plans, what are some things? Let's give people ideas. What are some things you feel safe doing? What are some of the things you feel like you want to recommend for people to take advantage of and have the best possible COVID-19 summer that they can have?
Licking doorknobs.
Licking doorknobs. Yeah.
Is it like a hobby?
For those that don't know, don't actually do that. I know that, I mean, Aiden, I'm surprised he knows that because he didn't know flatten the curve. But like licking a doorknob, especially
I
those
feel like that's just
public
kind of common
restrooms.
sense, though.
Well, and
To lick the doorknob?
I
Or not
promise
to lick
you,
the
Yeah,
doorknob?
exactly.
I promise you though, people are out there right now that don't know why that's bad. So let's explain this to
You
them.
put your hands on the doorknob.
And you put your hands in a lot of places. So especially you boys out there know this. Like you don't typically wash your hands as
I
much
wash
as
my
you
hands
should.
every time I go to the
I
bathroom.
think we
Apparently
talked
over
about
here.
the thing that horrified me at the beginning of this was all the soap flying off the shelves because I was like, was no one washing their hands before this? Like that was terrifying. And at the same time, I saw someone, there was a girl that I'd gone to college with, she posted it and she said, do people not wash their hands why is the soap all going? I was like, you have obviously never been to a men's restroom at a sporting event, you know? Because how many men walk out of the restroom and do not wash their hands? And then those men
Because
go
the
to
soap's
touch.
empty.
Not necessarily. They just skip the sink altogether, don't even look at it. So that's why you don't lick doorknobs. Because those same men that don't
There's no
wash their hands
doorknob.
at sporting events after using the restroom, any part of the restroom, go and then they open doors and press on doors and touch different things and railings when you're walking upstairs. And then they touch their phone and all that stuff. And they touch their money. They get
Well, I'm
passed
excited
to
about the
cash.
lake.
So that's why you don't lick doorknobs. Okay. So now we have that. We talked about that piece.
His 5-minute tangent about not licking doorknobs.
So we have Corey has suggested camping as a great opportunity. So camping, social distancing,
Camper sales are up right now.
camper sales. Oh, like RVs and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, they're buying.
Wow. Okay. Buy your stock or whatnot.
Just like have you ever been to like Academy or like Walmart and seen all the bikes that are gone?
Oh my gosh,
No.
they're
It is
literally completely
crazy.
gone.
All of the weightlifting equipment's gone. I
Is
was
it
gonna
really?
get some, and people are like, "Nope, we have no gym. I'm
Well,
gonna grab some stuff."
and ain't that fascinating that gyms were one of the things that open up soon? And I was like, oh,
Yeah, that
Didn't make much sense.
too much touching on equipment.
right. All the sweating,
No.
all the nasty everywhere.
Not it.
People don't wipe benches down and stuff like that, or
That's
doorknobs. Like it's just, and talk about heavy breathing. Like
Yeah.
especially when they haven't worked out for 3 months because their one way to work out was the gym. Like they're going to be panting everywhere, and they're going to be tired, and their brain's going to be affected. Man, ooh. That's where the spreads are going to happen, boys.
They haven't been doing their jazzercise.
Hey, jazzercise works, man. It does, yeah. I don't actually do jazzercise.
Yes,
Yes, she does.
I do something called insanity,
It's
which is very
jazzercise.
different.
Which is when you twinkle the tips of your fingers when you
I-
do it, not your whole hand.
I actually
okay?
don't believe y'all would last through an episode of insanity.
I'm
just gonna throw that
sure.
out there.
Test me.
We'll find out tomorrow.
I'll do it.
Clayton won't because he's out of town. We
No.
have Bible study tomorrow if you'd like to join us on YouTube. Workouts cause heart attacks. We are praying for you, Cresswells. We love you guys. But yeah, well, especially if you haven't worked out, not in that case, but like these people are going back to the gyms, hadn't worked out in 3 months. So I'm like, oh boy. So yeah, what are, thank you though for that, Michelle. What else are you thinking is a safe bet when you goes to, what advice do you have for people? What can you do this summer?
Okay, so this is like safe, but not safe at the same time. You got to be precautious. Precautious still. But like if you know your friends, have been like staying inside, not doing anything for 2 weeks, not symptomatic, nothing, all good. You can hang out with them. I know I just hung out with one of my friends, Lauren, today. She hasn't been able to do anything for ever because of her mom, and I was like, you can come over. It's just my family, everything, we're all good. You're all good, but you still have to be precautious because, you never know. So.
Exactly. And I like that 2 week window. I've thought about this too. It's actually kind of like sad. Like I am so excited to be able to see people again. I'm so excited about the possibility of seeing people together to do worship, to move forward in that respect in person and things like that. But I'm also sad because like one of the great joys of my summer is when I get to get out of town and see my grandparents. But the reality is they're older, they're more vulnerable to a lot of stuff. In order for me to really be able to do that, I would have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Well, that's the problem is we're trying to open back up and see people again. So it's like, oh gosh, when am I actually going to be able to see grandparents again with COVID-19 solidly behind me? Unless I get it, which I've danced around that so much.
Have you been tested yet for the antibodies?
No, or for the virus. But we're talking about as staff, we might have to continually be tested for COVID-19 to see whether or not we're positive.
You gonna
because
stick that thing up your nose every time you
I
walk
do
in there?
not, and that's one of the reasons why I'm terrified.
hurts.
Is it doesn't hurt?
I've had like something similar done. It was like for staph in my nose. They stick it all the way up to your brain. I swear it hurts so bad.
I'm not looking
Least
forward to
scared.
it.
My nose doesn't go that far.
I would rather you prick my finger, take my blood, than I would stick something that far up
Oh,
my
yeah.
face.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would not.
What if
handle
what if
that.
it breaks off in there?
It won't break off?
Oh
man.
my
That's not how
gosh.
that works.
Imagine it's just stuck in there.
That would be
Linda said
so
no
bad.
hugs.
And Austin resonated, and Michelle resonated with that. That seriously is a tough part too. Is when is that kind of connection going to be allowed again too? Even the handshake, or the bro hug or the high five. When is that stuff going to be acceptable again? And it's just kind of it is sad. There's no doubt about it. But let's continue forward with some of the stuff that we would recommend to. And I agree though, the 2-week window is kind of what we were on and why that's so important to think about. Because again, that's the like gestation period, if you will, the symptoms period. If you quarantine for 2 weeks, then you've guaranteed you either don't have it or you had it and it's gone because you've been not around people that have been around people and things like that. What else you got? We got camping. We got quarantining with people, self-quarantining, being safe, keeping things in mind. Time in the pool or at the lake. Yeah. Yep. And again, outdoors, anything outside is a great idea, or as long as you're keeping the social distance and things like that.
Lee's backyard.
Yeah. Barbecue.
I have looked into a grill actually. I might, because I want to be able, I have a problem with my trees. I need to trim them really badly. So I've thought about a tree trimming party, but again, I want to be safe and social distance and all that good stuff.
So we're having a barbecue at your house.
Maybe.
Yes.
So you know the sago palm you have in your backyard?
Yes.
I saw this native YouTube video where they make a paste out of it and they eat it. I want to try it.
I do not, because those things kill dogs.
Yeah, it's poisonous to them, but not to us.
It's like onions.
Like avocados.
Like chocolate.
Like and broccoli to cats.
Okay, so we have some just suggestions to alternatives to high fives and bro hugs, daps with your ankles, and then you have Austin. We're not going to do that, and I know somehow. See, this is what y'all do. Y'all bring Austin in on this. But seriously, what are some other things we can kind of think about here with COVID-19 summer? Other advice, other positive things, and you're like, I want to try this. I want to do this.
What about the little lemonade stands? Could you really take lemonade from them?
Probably not. And little children
poor kids
passing out the Rona to you.
Oh my gosh.
Can't get their 50 cents for their lemonade.
Kids are going to go broke, bro. I don't know what you're trying to tell me, Lee. You tell me I can't take their lemonade?
Kids are already broke. I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't know. There's some kids in my neighborhood that make bank on lemonade.
Do they really?
They make like $25 a day, and I'm like,
no kidding. Good for them.
they're like right there at the main entrance.
Little
I was
entrepreneurs, little Steve Jobs is over there. All right. So okay. But what else do you have? What advice do you have for people looking at the summer and what can I do in this COVID? So again, I think you're hearing be safe. I think you're hearing some alternatives of camping, running, being outside. And that's, I had a friend, I think he's a physical therapist, but he kind of put out there this post about how like, if only the government were putting out guidelines too about just making healthy choices right now, about eating better and exercising and things like that, because it is coming out that a lot of people that are getting it are not in the best health in general, whether or not that's age or exercise or whatnot or pre-existing conditions, but just kind of prevent and actually get moving, get exercising. Because I was about to suggest Fortnite as a possibility of things to do, but also I don't want you to sit and play Fortnite all the time, because I want you exercising, I want you moving, I want you doing stuff. Walk your dogs.
Austin says fishing.
Oh, that's
fishing.
Yeah.
Do we know anybody that fishes?
Jeremy, Lane, they were doing it today.
Brady Dill does it.
Yeah,
Brady
And
Dill
then
does it.
This guy. Oh,
Clayton,
that
do you
guy.
fish?
I would have
No.
never guessed.
I can't tell. I can't tell if Clayton.
Look like a
Clayton
9-year-old
finishes.
fishing for the first time.
He looks like a little turtle right now. Turtle. All right, so yeah,
You have a helmet
again,
on.
a lot of outside stuff, and again, don't forget about people too. I think that's the other thing is connect, find different ways to do that kind of thing too. How are y'all feeling about COVID-19? How are you feeling about your COVID-19 summer that is ahead of you?
I feel like it's not as bad as it was looking.
Okay, that's good.
I feel like there's definitely a better outlook on it now, because we were kind of starting to get a little farther into knowing what's actually happening and how to not spread it and stuff like that.
Yep, totally. And I think Texas, of all places, and I'm not a native Texan, so I feel like I can say this, has got a good plan in place. So they're smart about it. They're ready for spikes. They're taking great precautions while trying to open up and get people moving again. So I'm blessed to be here, for sure. How are you feeling? This is where I'll kind of leave it to. How are you feeling about COVID-19 in general, guys? Because we haven't talked about it in so long. So how are you feeling about it? What's the honest truth? the world needs to know about how you're feeling about COVID-19?
I don't care.
So Clayton is completely apathetic. All right.
I don't know what that word means.
Read.
No.
I'm scared.
You're
Honestly,
scared?
I live with older people, so that can affect them more than it affects me. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the people I live with. So, I mean, yeah. And then I also want to go into the medical field. And with this, it's kind of
Sure.
like, because it's so dangerous, kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's this honest fear that needs to be talked about. That's the thing is I think people are afraid to say that because there's a lot of apathy out there. There's a lot of I don't care, let's just get back, let's just do it. But there's this real genuine honest fear out there too. And I think the biggest advice I've seen out there is just be graceful no matter what the opinion is, just be nice, just be a genuine human being. Don't make people angry or don't be angry at people because they're apathetic. Don't be angry at people because there's fear. Those are both genuine, honest feelings that are coming out. Aiden, how are you feeling about it all?
I mean, I'm kind of afraid, but I'm afraid in a different way. Like, obviously I'm afraid about like passing it to my grandparents and stuff like that and like my family, but I'm also kind of afraid that this is going to affect our future in a negative way.
How so?
I feel like because of how much we've had to, not necessarily the struggles or what's going to cause us to have struggles in the future, but the fact that we've had to close everything down and we're having to basically start from ground zero again with a lot of stuff, I don't know how that's going to affect our future in regards to, jobs and school for people going into college, even people going into high school. I don't know how it's going to affect just normal life, normalcy in general. Like I assume that it's not going to go back to what it was.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a scary thing to think that from here on out, it's going to all change.
Sure. And I think that there's a key word that you just said there that I think is moving a lot of that fear, and that's change. And you guys are already stepping into a season of change. And so then to know that the season of change that you're stepping into is also changing, like that's a whirlwind of, and so like, I'll let you in on a little bit of what you're going to hear at the physical graduation you're going to have too, is the great news and the way faith informs everything we're doing is that there's still a constant. Like there's still a reality. And that reality is that God is constant and that he's so stinking faithful. And so no matter what happens, no matter what falls, and you see this in the Psalms, and God's people got this, they understood it because of the exile, right? That seemed like the darkest possible outcome for the Israelites. And yet God still got them out of there. Israelites still had a future, bright future, big future, significantly bigger than anything that they could have imagined. And we see this as we look through the pages of Scripture. And we see it in history, right? The reality of the church being so big now, coming from this tiny little Jewish sect that thought they were done for. So that's the reality. God's super faithful. And so no matter what it is, yes, things are going to be different, but at least that's a rock solid piece that's there. And so no matter what happens, no matter how scary it seems about things changing around you or what's a job going to look like, yeah, the job field's going to change. And you can talk to some of your parents or people your parents' age or your grandparents' age and talk about change that they experienced and world differences and things like that. Again, y'all were born in 9/11, but like some of us lived through it. And that was change that we had no idea how we were going to get past. I was only in 7th grade when that happened, but it was like, wow, we live in a different world now. What does that mean? And that's the reality is moving forward, we're always going to live in a different world. It's just how are you going to approach it? And who are you going to turn to? Who are you going to bring with you? Who are you going to take with you to help you navigate, to make sure you don't kind of lose the hope too? So Jeremy kind of mentioned when he thinks about this COVID-19 summer and how he really feels about all this stuff, more mad about the trips I had to cancel and won't get to do now. And I guess like, well, what do you guys have also been in that situation. So what is your advice to one another when it comes to that kind of stuff?
There's always next year.
There's always the future. Yeah. Just because one chapter closed doesn't mean there's not future chapters that are significantly better coming your way. You know what I mean? And I think that goes to a lot of what you talked about too with your fears, Aiden. All right. And again, fears that I think are shared with a lot of people. There's a lot of worry, a lot of things like that. But I think the biggest thing to kind of remember is, just because it's changing, just because it's different, just because it's scary because you don't know what it is, doesn't mean it's the end, right? Doesn't mean it's the end until Jesus come back, right? And that's going to be a big end. That's going to be a fun end for all this stuff too. Speaking of endings, we're going to have to wrap this up here soon. But that also means we're wrapping up 2019, 2020. Let's talk about it. This baby that started on the last Thursday of January of 2020. Who knew what was coming? Who knew we were going to lose Kobe Bryant? Who knew we were going to be in quarantine? Who knew Tom Brady was going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer? Who knew this was going to be something that carried us through? Let's talk about it. Got us kind of through this time together, carried us through, gave us something to talk about, gave us a reason to talk about things. What are you guys in your parting thoughts about? Let's talk about it. And what do you have to say to people out there?
I'm just super excited because this is more like a start than an ending type deal. It's definitely just trying to help get us into this whole realm of like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about things. We got the whole setup now. We got our gear. We can start doing more projects. We can do stuff like this. So I'm excited.
I'm thankful that we had this. I know it kind of started out as just joking around and not really meaning that we were going to actually do this. And then one day we just decided to do it. And I'm honestly kind of thankful that it worked out the way it did, because I feel like this is a completely new step in the way that we're kind of approaching ministry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the cool part about it. I mean, it started out as a hobby. Like, it started out as like, I wasn't even counting our time together as any piece of work. And then we started really pushing it as student ministry because we needed something to step into this world. It was a reality for us. But I thought the coolest thing that I hope you guys out there see, especially wherever you're at, whether or not you're an adult out there watching right now or listening, whether or not you're graduating senior, or whether or not you're a freshman or an eighth grader or something like that, just if you see it, if you're feeling it, and it is possible for you to make it happen. Whatever it is possible for you to make it happen. And I think these guys prove that. Everything here is because of these two guys sitting here going, let's just do this. Let's just show up one day when Pastor Lee's not expecting it and play around with podcast equipment and then say, hey, we're doing this every week. This was not me at all stepping in saying, okay, let's do this. It was two people that had an idea, wanted to run with it, and are going to continue to run with it and create. And every single one of you is capable of doing that no matter what stage of life you're in. So keep that in mind. I mean, it's just a cool thing, a cool piece, and certainly something that's needed in the church is more voices out there, especially y'all's voices, younger voices. Because like I said, I think y'all's thoughts are far more interesting than my own, which is why I like to hear them. So yeah, we got some people in the chat saying how proud they are of you guys, and definitely this whole self-made thing. So I guess we've come to the conclusion.
Wow.
Till
Are you
next
ready?
time.
Till next time. This has been.
Let's talk about it.
All right, we'll see you guys.